So you're putting it on YouTube. Hey guys, welcome back. I'm finally finishing my C8, and we had to do this interview another day, which is today. Beautiful day here in Southern Cal. Mr. Sean Church here. He's the guy that put the magic touches and sprinkled that fairy dust on my car. Let's start with, what did you think? What did you think about the tuning process on this new platform of HP tuners?
Right, so this is the Global B architecture, right, from GM. So it's replaced all their old stuff. The ECU in your car is coded E99, right? So that's the latest and greatest.
Right.
And we weren't sure because we hadn't seen it. And HP Tuners is very particular about who they let tune the E99 platform, the Global B architecture. We actually had to kind of work them a little bit to get them to give us permission because they were only doing it for people who were retailers of their hardware parts, and we just tune. So say, hey, look guys, come on, I spent 100 grand in credits with you guys, so help me out here. They gave us access to the ECU, and I really like it. So it's really a step up for GM over the old stuff. The main thing being is that now it has full-time, closed-loop, wideband fuel control. What does that mean? That basically means that it's always changing and trimming the fuel to make sure you're hitting the right mixture.
Okay.
So the old stuff from GM, say a C7 Z06, for example, once you went to full throttle, went to what's called power enrichment. When it went to power enrichment, it stopped trying to control the mixture. It just assumed you had your mass airflow calibration right, you had your fuel calibration right, and you got the right mixture. That's why you have to dyno tune them, right? With this now, let's say I messed up on my fuel calibration a little bit, right? Or I messed up on my mass airflow calibration. Well, the car says, hey, you want to run a 12.0 mixture. That's what you said, right? But you're only running 12.5, so I'm going to add 5% fuel to get you to the right mixture. And it's doing that even at full throttle. So what that does is gives us a huge margin for safety. It's the only reason that turbo kit would work on your car, right, with a stock ECU, is because that E99 ECU now has full-time closed-loop control, and that's the best part.
So a little bit of highlight for you guys. So for those out there that ran the ETS or Sissio turbo kit alone by itself, something that Mr. Church here observed was that there was a lot of pinging going on this because it was there just wasn't a tune. And to his point, because the wide degree that the ECU was able to accommodate it and kind of balance that off, it ran. It doesn't mean that it ran efficiently or
let's put it this way, it ran better than I thought it would.
Okay.
And in part because of the ECU, right? And so the closed loop fuel control helps control the fuel. And then when you get knock, well, GM runs what's called an adaptive knock control, right? So what that means is if you're getting knock, it'll pull timing out, right? And then if it keeps getting knock, it'll say, okay, clearly my target timing's too much, so I'm gonna start going towards a low octane table. And so that's what would happen with your car, is you'd start getting some knock retard, and if you had that long enough, the ECU would say, okay, I'm gonna start just pulling out timing even before I hear knock.
Okay.
So it puts it down to a safe level. So the fact that GM had put a much more advanced ECU in the C8 gave the turbo kit manufacturers a lot more leeway to actually do something. So I did not expect us to make the power we did right out of the box with turbo kit, because I thought it'd be, all over the place, right? But the ECU really helped accommodate that. So it ran pretty good, and I think that's why you can get away with it, at least at low boost, right?
So out of the box, it ran about in the mid 5s.
575, yeah, something like that.
So
yeah.
that's where we were at. And at this juncture, again, one of the kind of the limit to the C8 Stingray is that the clutch is very limited to like a mid to high 6s, and then after that, it's just gonna really be dangerous for say.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen people push them up into the 7s, but you just don't know, right? You don't know where the problem's gonna be. And that was actually something else we found too, was on the stock calibration, because the ECU knows you're flowing more air, right? It also then calculates you're making more torque. And when it calculates you're making more torque, it's gonna output that value to the transmission computer, and it's gonna put more pressure to the clutches, right?
Oh, okay.
But it also means that on the shifts, and you felt this when we drove it, right? It pulls out a ton of timing on the shifts to try and protect the clutches.
Right.
Which is a good thing, right? But it doesn't need to pull, it costs us a lot of acceleration time, right? Each one of those shifts, it felt like somebody shifted the manual slowly, right?
Yeah, it was literally gas just got cut. I mean, it really, Okay, so let's shift gear for a moment. Out of your tuning process, it was again a Stingray with the turbo kit, because this is one of your first projects. What did you enjoy about it?
Well, I always love seeing new stuff, right? So it's always kind of cool to say, hey, what's different about this car? What's different about this engine? For example, we started running ethanol in your car too. And normally on an LT1 fuel system, we're not going to be able to get that much power. You know, for example, I just had a C7 Stingray in here earlier with a supercharger, right?
Okay.
And he put LT4 parts in for the fuel system. You know, we were able to run like E50 or so at about the same horsepower as you were making, right? We were able to run that on a stock fuel system on the LT2 on your car. So the injector's a little better, I think the in-tank fuel pump's a little bit better, so there's a lot more capacity there, which is good to know, right? Interchangeable parts, everything else. So I was very excited to see the closed loop fuel control, so that's always great. That makes a tuner's job easier because even if we miss a little bit, the ECU will tell us how much we missed by, and then we can go back and make corrections, right? So that was good. And then just seeing how much power we can make with a non-intercooled turbo kit and seeing how it would respond.
Yeah, so off the bat, Sean here was able to make it an E mixture right off the bat. And right now we're running in the E40, E50 zone. And that does help. Anyone that knows about e-fuel, it does help. So that was a big plus. That was kind of a free bonus there for all of us out there. So for ones out just tuning out there, for that do not know, you can, as long as you have an experienced tuner that knows what they're doing and know what they're looking at and identify those balance points and the parameters, E mixture can be ran off the bat. To what extent, depending on the car and the parts and how.
I'm saying on a turbo car right now, we're probably safe to E50 to about 700 wheel. Right. So about as high as we can go with stock clutches, right? Supercharged car, probably not quite as much because the supercharger takes extra power to drive. Right. So maybe 650, maybe more. We don't know until we actually push it to the point where fuel pressure starts dropping. But yeah, so far so good. I would say minimum 650 on a supercharged car, minimum 700 for E50.
Okay, on the downside, I'm gonna step to that. I'm gonna take the punch for it. HP tuner, you guys were pretty difficult because I had to wait till Sean work through the politics of you guys to get the tools here. Other than that, what did you found that was not as enjoyable as you were going through the parameters, or is it just business as usual for you?
So the one thing that's new about the E99 that I didn't like, and it's not because it's a bad strategy for car ECUs, but it's a difficult one to tune, is that GM has now switched from what's called a volumetric efficiency equation to a neural network equation for volumetric efficiency. So now theoretically, that's a better way to go in the long run. It'll actually learn over time and adapt. However, tuning it is difficult. Right now, the only way we can really tune neural network stuff is to go out, take some data logs, make some changes, take some more data logs, then we send those to HP tuners. They basically crunch the numbers probably on Amazon Cloud Computing because it takes a lot of computing power to do that. Then they'll send you back some new parameters to put in, then you go test it again. So it's this iterative process where you have to send data out and get it back, and they charge for that. So it adds a lot of cost to it as well. But the good news is that neural network tuning isn't really going to be necessary until we start going with, say, large cam shafts on, say, an NA application. So stage 1 cam, probably don't need to touch that much. You start going up into stage 2, stage 3, ported heads. Maybe someone's trying to make, you know, Z06 power with an LT2 instead.
Right.
Then we might have to do some neural network tuning. But to be honest, at this point, I don't see that happening a whole lot. I think most guys looking for 600 plus out of an LT2 car, out of a Stingray, are probably just going to go forced induction. And the guys who really want 650, 700 horsepower are going to buy a Z06 to start with. So I don't see us running into too many neural network issues now, but 5, 6 years down the road, when the cars become, you know, secondhand on the used market and guys are looking for new things, yeah, we might have to start playing with that a little bit more. So that's something I don't look forward to, but it's all part of the process.
I mean, I'm not going to take too much more of your time. It's going to be really interesting as we had kind of a light discussion around the multiple iterations and cars that GM has put out for this Corvette line. They started out with the Stingray, and then they came out with the, of course, the Z51 package and whatever, but still pretty much the same engine. Then they went with the Z06, which is the flat crank, which sounds great, but we're going to be curious how much power someone can really get out of it.
Not much without doing a lot of additional work. I mean, it's going to be kind of like a LS7 car, say in a C6 Z06. You know, you can get more power out of those, but you're going to have to replace the heads, the cam, you know, intake manifold, all kinds of stuff like that. And that motor is not tuned nearly to the level that the LT, I think it's the LT6 now in it, is it? Yeah, in the Z06. That motor is on a whole other level. Right. So, I mean, yeah, you might be able to find 50, 60, 70 horsepower out of it, but it's going to be expensive, and that's all you're going to get naturally aspirated.
Now, then they went on, right now, they have the E-Ray.
Yeah.
Which on paper, I haven't driven one yet. I don't know, have you had the opportunity?
Haven't even seen one yet, yeah.
But the specs are spectacular. The reviewers are ranting and raving. The 0 to 60 time off the bat is like I've seen from 2.2 to 2.6. So that remains to be seen. And how tunable that car, I'm not sure.
Well, here's the deal, right? If it's the same LT2 in there, and all it's looking for is how to combine those two motors, we might be able to put a turbo kit or a supercharger on that LT2, and then that E-Ray now becomes kind of I think the ZR1's gonna be twin turbo, right? And then the Zora's twin turbo and hybrid. So maybe the E-Ray now starts to approach, kind of somewhere between the ZR1 and the Zora, right? If you do it right.
So if anyone's going to get to see it, I'm confident this guy is going to be able to see it over time. Just got to give him time. And I'm going to come back to him and for further updates. But Sean, I really appreciate your time and just taking out the time. It's another day to talk with us. Listen, I enjoyed it. Your knowledge is, it was a pleasure. That's all I can say. You got some numbers up here. They are what is producing right now on my car, around the mid-6s area, between torque and horsepower. We just want to be safe and sane. So that's the big key. Otherwise, hey, Sean, I really appreciate the time, as always, and we'll keep this going. All right, guys. Hey, subscribe and check out his IG. We'll go from there. Take care.